Hi everybody, it's Geordie from Geordie's Cards here for Pawsome Stamps today, and I'm very excited to be showing you how I created this cute little box card featuring some products from the new release. So I have the Fall Signs stamp set, which I think is one of my favorites, and the Coffee Llama stamp set, which I'm just using for that sentiment at the top there, sending warm hugs. This is the box card that I've created. Now you do not need any specialty dies to make this, and I'm going to show you how I've done it. So you need to start off with a piece of cardstock that measures 7.5 inches by 4.25 inches. So I'm just trying to show you here what I've done on a scrap piece of cardboard. Then you need to take your scoreboard and you need to score at 2 inches from each end on the long side, if that makes sense. So it's a rectangle shape. You want to make sure that it's the long side that you're scoring along, and it's 2 inches from either end. Then you're going to take your ruler and just measure 1 3/4 inches down from the top edge. And you're going to do that at each score line. So I'm just showing you here how I measured it out. I've put a little pencil mark, just a little pencil tick, and then I'm going to get my paper trimmer out. Now, this is where you have to be a little bit careful, and you just want to trim down to that 1 3/4 mark. So from the top, trim down with your paper trimmer down to that 1 3/4 mark. So you'll see me do that here, and then I'm going to flip my paper around and trim down the other way. Now I'm just doing this quite slowly so I make sure I just go to that little tick mark that I've made and no further. So once I've done one side, I'll flip my paper around, I'll pull my blade down to the other end because I want to do from the top on both sides, and I'm just going to cut again very carefully up to that little tick mark that I've created. So now I have 2 slits in the top part of my card. The next thing I'm going to do is bring my ruler out again, and I'm going to measure 1 inch from the bottom of the card at each side. So just again with a little pencil, just do a tick mark, 1 inch from the bottom on each side. And I'm just showing you there the distance. I tried to make this as clear as possible so that you could see what I was doing. Okay, so once we've done that, I'm going to use my ruler and I'm going to draw a line from that tick mark that I made 1 3/4 inches down to that tick mark I made from 1 inch from the bottom, and just do a diagonal line down each side so that those 2 little points match up on each side. Once you've done that, it's time to pull out your scissors, and you're going to cut along that line that you've just drawn with your scissors. Now just try and be fairly accurate. It doesn't need to be absolutely perfect, but try and keep it as steady as possible. If you have any kind of leftover pencil marks, you can just use an eraser to rub those out and get rid of them. So that is the main part of your box card done. Okay, and now you're going to fold along those score lines that you created, and you can kind of see how this is going to come together. I'm just grabbing out my little kind of plastic bone folder thing that I've got here just to reinforce those folds. Once that's done, I took a little paper, a corner rounder rather, a corner rounder, and I just rounded the corners on each side. Now this is just an extra step. It's not something you have to do. I just wanted to just finish it off a little bit more, but it's absolutely not necessary. You could also take a circle die and kind of create an arch type top to the top of your box card, but leaving it plain is absolutely fine. Now for the tabs that are going to go inside, I cut the first one at 4.5 by 2 inches, the second one at 4.5 by 1.5 inches, and the third at 4.5 by 1 inch. So they go up in 1 inch increments. And I'm going to score these at 1/2 inch from each end. So this is going to create the little tabs that I'm going to use to secure these to the main part of my box card. I'm going to do that for all 3 of these tab pieces. So 1/2 inch in from each end. And I'm trying to go through this quite slowly. I'm doing this in real time so that you can see exactly what I did. And you can see how quick and easy this is to make. It's not difficult at all. It's quite simple to put together. Once that's done, I'm going to fold along those score lines that I've just created, and I'm going to attach some double-sided tape to those little tabs on each of these little flaps. So fold along the score lines and attach some double-sided tape. I'm going to attach the double-sided tape off camera because I don't think you need to watch that. Once that's done, it's time to attach your tabs into the box card. So just release the paper off one side of the double-sided tape and secure that down. What you want to do is try and make sure that it's nicely lined up with the bottom of the box card so that it all sits nice and flat. And do that with all three. Now, I've created these tabs 1/2 inch wide, so I'm putting them roughly next to each other. I'm just moving them slightly apart so there's a bit of a gap between each one, but they fit in really nicely. With the last one, you want to make sure that it lines up with the edge of the box card, so right at the end, so it creates a nice finish to your closing. So I've got one side attached down. I'm just going to make sure everything's lined up perfectly, and then I'm going to remove the score tape from the other sides of the tabs, and I'm going to fold that other kind of angled piece down on top so that everything is nicely attached, and I have my box card. So as you can see, it's quite simple and easy to put together, and it fits into a standard size envelope, which is perfect. So here's my one. I have used a grassy border die to create those tabs, and I've added some Distress ink to just make it look a little bit more dimensional. And obviously I've used coloured cardstock. But everything else is exactly the same as I showed you on that white card piece. I have gone ahead and coloured and cut out my images. I used my Zig Clean Colour Real Brush markers today, and I will leave the colours listed below for you. And now it's just a case of attaching everything in to my box card. I am using liquid glue, which means that everything moves around a little bit, as you will see. So you kind of have to hold it in place. Because I used my zigs, I did use clear embossing powder over my ink, because I like to create a bit of a well so that my colour doesn't bleed out everywhere. So the embossing powder made it a little bit more tricky to stick down, so I kind of had to hold things in place for a little while, but it works fine. It just means that you just have to spend a little bit longer kind of holding things down and making sure they're well secured. As you can see, it keeps popping off all the time, but it worked out in the end and everything got securely stuck down. So I'm just trying to figure out, I didn't use all of the images that I coloured in. That big stack of pumpkins I didn't use, and I didn't use any of my leaves, which I think I will use on another card because I really loved how my leaves turned out. I did some two-toned leaves and I thought they looked really nice, so I'm going to have to use them for something else. But I used my scarecrow there in the back along with that kind of stack of hay and one of the pumpkins. Then I did the apple barrel and two of the pumpkins in the middle row, along with one of the little crows. And the great thing about having everything kind of stepped is that you can see more easily what's in the back kind of rows and the middle row. Sometimes if you make a box card and all the layers are the same height, it's not as easy to see what you've got in the back. So I like the fact that this is nice and stepped. And in my very front row, I've got my 4 little sunflowers, which are just gorgeous, aren't they? They're such pretty images. All of these images are so fun to colour, and I really enjoyed pulling out my zigs and having a play around with these. I just think they're so lovely, and I love fall. I love the colours of fall. It's my favourite time of year. So I had a lot of fun making this, and I just love that little scarecrow. He's so cute. So as I say, just playing around with everything, making sure that I put everything in where I kind of want it. I didn't have a plan. I just kind of worked my way forward from the back and tried to figure out where everything was going to go. I'm going to finish off with that other little crow there, and he's just going to sit into the right-hand corner of my shadow box or my box card. And there we go. That's it. I did consider putting something else down, but decided that that was enough. It was busy enough as it was. So once that's done, here we go. You can see I'm deciding, am I going to put this other little crow in? I decided there were too many crows. What's that saying? 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy. So I've got 2 in there. So let's bring joy to people. Once all of that was done, I decided my background was looking a little bit too plain. So I just die cut these little clouds, which I had in my stash, and I stuck them into the background just to create a little bit more interest. So I've got 3 clouds there in varying sizes. One is larger and then 2 smaller ones. And I'm just going to place them around in the sky. And I'm going to have 2 of them hanging off the edge, and I will just trim the edge off so that it's flush with my card base. And I just liked that little bit of added interest. I just thought it made it look a bit more polished and a bit more finished. So once I finish gluing these clouds down and trimming off the edges, I just have to make a place on the back for a message to my recipient. So what I did was took some white cardstock, which I trimmed down to 4 inches by 3 3/4 inches. And I just attached that to the back with some liquid glue. I did use my corner rounder again to just kind of polish it off a little bit and make it a bit more interesting. And of course you could add another sentiment on here, or add some images if you've got some coloured images left over. I decided just to leave mine blank today, but you would be more than welcome to add whatever you wanted to the back. But it's just a nice spot for you to be able to write the message to your recipient. And there we have it. My little box card is done. I really hope you enjoyed this one today. Thank you so much for joining us on the Pawsome Stamps YouTube channel. We would love to see you come back again, so please do subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment down below, and here are some other videos that you might like to check out. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care.